After decades of silence, the blood of Xiaoyan began to boil once more, beyond the limits of all lower planes. Within the vast convergence of countless worlds, a new journey had begun. This was the Great Thousand World, where supremes were common, where Dodi were no longer legends, and where even destiny itself was tested by power. Gazing upon this mysterious world, the blood within Xiaoyan's body, dormant for several decades, finally began to boil once more. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Continuing from the previous chapter, the territory of the Luo god clan stretched endlessly across the heavens, a vast dominion that encompassed thousands upon thousands of continental lands. Each continent was a world unto itself, yet among them all, the Zhushuan continent, situated in the southern reaches, stood above the rest. It was not merely one of the clan's core continents. It was a clan protecting sacred land, a place where heritage power and ancient authority converged, a land whose existence symbolized the very foundation of the Luo god clan. At the heart of the Zhushuan continent, a supergiant mountain rose majestically toward the heavens. Its peak pierced the clouds, towering over 100,000 jang high, as if it were a pillar connecting heaven and earth themselves. This was one of the 8 great Luo god mountains, Luo Mountain. Suddenly, a beam of crimson light erupted violently from the summit. The eruption was instantaneous yet overwhelming. In a single breath, the surrounding space within several thousand miles was drowned in a deep blood-red glow. The skies trembled, the earth quaked, and a terrifying spiritual power fluctuation swept outward like a raging storm, carrying a pressure so immense that it seemed capable of shaking both heaven and earth apart. Mountains rumbled, clouds scattered, even space itself appeared to distort under the weight of that power. Moments later, the crimson radiance that had engulfed the heavens and earth began to slowly retract, as if being drawn back by an unseen force. Layer by layer, the red light faded, until it finally vanished completely at the peak of Luo Mountain, leaving behind an eerie and solemn silence. At the summit, a figure clad in black robes slowly rose to his feet. A powerful aura lingered around him, unsettled spiritual power still rippling faintly through the air, as though the mountain itself had yet to recover from his presence. So powerful. The man murmured softly, "Is this spiritual power? A 6th grade supreme?" A faint smile curved beneath the shadows of his hood. Quite promising. At that very moment, an aged and calm voice suddenly echoed within Xiaoyan's mind, as if it had been waiting for this precise instant to awaken. "Senior." Xiaoyan was startled, for the voice belonged to the elderly man who had previously called himself Luo Tianshen. "Haha, this is merely a trace of spiritual will I left within your mind. It will soon dissipate. However, since you and I are fated, I shall briefly introduce the Great Thousand World to you, so that newcomers like yourselves may better navigate it." Luo Tianshen's voice rang out once more. "The Great Thousand World is the convergence point of all lower planes, and the highest grade plane of existence. Here, cultivation primarily revolves around spiritual power, though many auxiliary paths have branched off from it. Among them, spiritual array masters are especially renowned, their strength in no way inferior to cultivators who focus solely on spiritual power. Cultivators of spiritual power are divided into multiple realms. The initial stage is the spiritual motion realm, followed by the spiritual wheel realm, above which lies the divine soul realm. Beyond the divine soul realm are the 3 heavenly states, namely the fusion heaven state transformation, heaven state, and heaven connecting state. Only those who reach the 3 heavenly states may be considered true experts. A cultivator at the heaven connecting state is sufficient to become a minor overlord on a continent. To stand at the very pinnacle of a continent, however, one must enter the supreme realm, a bottleneck faced by countless cultivators from lower and even high-level planes. Your current realm is precisely the supreme realm, which is divided into 9 grades. At present, you are a 6th grade supreme. Above the Supreme Realm lies the Earth Supreme Realm, whose cultivators are regarded as top-tier experts even within the Great Thousand World. Beyond that is the Heaven's Supreme Realm, a realm I myself have yet to reach, so I shall not elaborate further. Finally, this old man wishes you a satisfying journey through the Great Thousand World. As Luo Tianshen's words faded away, Xiaoyan took a deep breath and cast his gaze toward the distant sky. Looking at this mysterious world, the blood within him, dormant for decades, once again surged violently. However, I must first find Jun and the others. Xiaoyan suddenly came back to his senses, remembering that he had not come alone to the Great Thousand World. Along with him were his two wives, Medusa Kai-Lin and Shun as well as two elders, Shun's father Gu Yuan, and Zhu Kun, the Dragon Emperor of the ancient Void Dragon tribe. All four of them possessed Du-Di-level strength. Once their Du-Qi was fully transformed into spiritual power, there was no doubt that each would become an expert of the Supreme Realm. Although such strength could not be considered truly top-tier within the Great Thousand World, it was more than enough to allow them to roam freely across any continent, unrestricted and unchallenged by most. With this realization, Xiaoyan's eyes gleamed faintly. The next instant, his figure flickered, and he shot forward like a streak of light, vanishing rapidly into the boundless distance. High above the vast skies, Xiaoyan hovered in mid-air, his gaze sweeping across the seemingly endless world before him. Mountains stretched without limit, continents overlapped like layers of heaven and earth, and the flow of spiritual power filled every corner of space. Since the moment he had stepped into the Great Thousand World, nearly half a month had already passed. During this time, he had tirelessly explored this boundless expanse, gradually gaining a deeper understanding of the land he now stood upon. From what he had learned, this region appeared to lie within the dominion of the Luo God clan, one of the great powers of the Western Heaven domain. Its territory alone encompassed thousands of immensely vast continents, each one vast enough to rival entire worlds he had once known. The sheer scale of it all was enough to make even Xiaoyan feel a faint sense of awe. The fact that he had yet to fully traverse this area, even after half a month, was proof enough of its sheer scale. Although he had not encountered any conflicts during this time, Xiaoyan could clearly sense that, within a radius of several 100,000 miles, there existed several powerful auras that even he had to treat with caution. On the Du-Qi continent, these individuals would at least be Do-Di-level beings, yet here they appeared to be merely ordinary supremes. Standing in mid-air, Xiaoyan pondered briefly, then turned his gaze forward. With a sudden movement, his figure vanished, covering over 1,000 miles in the blink of an eye. Maintaining such speed, after several minutes, a massive city of boundless scale finally appeared within his field of vision. Even from 1,000 miles away, the city still appeared enormous, causing Xiaoyan to marvel in amazement. A single city in the Great Thousand World was actually comparable to central plains of the Du-Qi continent. When Xiaoyan was still 1,000 miles from the city, his presence had already attracted the attention of certain experts within. On the western side of the city, within a red pavilion, a man in red robes who had been cultivating slowly opened his eyes and gazed toward the distant horizon. What a powerful aura! Has some expert passed through this area? He murmured softly before instantly vanishing. On the opposite side of the city, amid bustling streets filled with people, a woman dressed in purple suddenly halted her steps, turning her gaze toward the sky beyond the city walls, a cold smile curling at the corner of her lips. At the same time, on a vast plaza, tens of thousands of miles away, an elderly man clad in white appeared. His eyes also shifted toward the city's exterior, and a faint smile emerged on his face. Outside the city, Xiaoyan's figure slowly descended from the sky. He looked up at a wooden plaque above the city gate, upon which were carved several large characters. Western Dao City. Xiaoyan smiled faintly and stepped into this prosperous metropolis. It seems I need to find someone to inquire about the situation here. and also gather information about Zun-Ir and the others. Thinking to himself, he walked toward a large pavilion ahead. Suddenly, a deafening explosion erupted in mid-air not far away. A terrifying storm swept outward instantly, throwing the city below into chaos. Countless gazes turned skyward at the same moment. Amid rolling smoke and dust, a young man clad in white was blasted backward. Isn't that Liu Tianhuang from the Sixth Profound sect? What happened? A chorus of shocked cries erupted from the crowd. Moments later, a surge of black light violently tore through the rolling smoke. 4 figures clad in yellow robes burst forth from within, their expressions cold and merciless. Pitch-black spiritual power roared out from their bodies like raging tides, rapidly condensing in mid-air. In the blink of an eye, 4 colossal black beams took shape, each one dense, oppressive, and filled with destructive force, before crashing down toward the white-robed youth with terrifying momentum, as though they intended to erase him completely from existence. The sudden pressure caused the surrounding air to distort, and the space itself let out faint cracking sounds under the overwhelming power. The white-robed youth let out a low roar, his eyes flashing with unwillingness. Clenching his teeth, he thrust the long spear in his hands forward with all his strength. The spear hummed violently, its tip erupting with a brilliant burst of energy as it collided head-on with the black beams. Boom! A deafening explosion shook the skies. The youth was forced backward, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Yet he managed to hold on for a brief instant. Without hesitation, he twisted his body mid-air, using the rebound force to abruptly turn and flee at full speed toward the distant mountain range, his figure transforming into a streak of white light. Behind him, the black beams continued to pursue relentlessly, tearing apart the clouds as they advanced. At that moment, Xiao Yan's gaze had already locked firmly onto the fleeing youth. His brows twitched almost imperceptibly, a faint trace of astonishment flashing across his eyes. From that body, he sensed a violent and unfamiliar fluctuation, fierce, blazing, and tyrannical, as though something ancient and dangerous was slumbering within. It was unmistakable, flame-based power, and not an ordinary one. Could it be, Xiao Yan murmured softly, his eyes narrowing, that the great thousand world also possesses heavenly flames? A ripple of doubt and curiosity stirred deep within his heart. The next instant, his figure slowly blurred, melting into the surrounding space as if he had never been there at all. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.